What job did you dream of having when you were a kid?
I grew up in Romania, first of all. It's important to mention because Romania is a very religious country. Still is, but it used to be even more religious than it is actually today. And my grandmother used to take me to church like a couple of days per week. Going to church, I saw that the priest was kind of the therapist, the financial advisor. You know, they have multiple roles to play in society. So I wanted to become a priest when I was little. And then I grew up, we got cable television, I started watching with my father these Animal Planet, Discovery documentaries, and I was fascinated by animals and ecosystems. So then I wanted to become something in that area, like an explorer, you know, looking at various animals and ecosystems.
What's your job title today?
Cloud computing specialist.
Explain that job to me as if you were explaining it to a 5-year-old.
I have a 5-year-old son. I would need to make some toy analogy. So let's look at it from that perspective, right? Imagine that you're a 5-year-old and you want a toy. If you want a toy, you need to first buy it. 5-year-old, you don't have a lot of money. Maybe you do have a weekly allowance. You need to save up the money to buy it. Maybe you need to convince your mother and father to buy it for you. Then after you have the toy, you play with it from time to time, but you also need to maintain it. You need to put it back. You need to kind of clean it. You need to maintain it in functional order, right? There are some responsibilities that come along with the toy. And then you play with it for a while, but then it kind of gets old. So then it probably ends up in a drawer somewhere. You're not playing with it that much anymore. Now that's kind of the traditional way of looking at it. Now imagine if you would have a magical box that when you open it up, you have multiple toys to choose from. You can get a toy out of that box, the one that you want. You can play with it for as long as you want, and then you could put it back in the box. And when you put it back in the box, somebody cleans it for you, maintains it in functional order. So the next time you get it out of the box, it's perfectly ready for you to play with it. And also, you only pay for it for as long as you're playing with it. So there's no upfront investment that you need to save for or convince your parents to do. You can very likely pay for it from your allowance. So that would be kind of the correlation with what I do. If you would translate what I just said to my job, I'm working with companies and kind of showing them this magical box, teaching them how to best leverage it to their advantage so they can get the most out of it.
So the magical box is the cloud, and the toys are
IT services that companies can leverage.
The old way of doing things, companies would buy these toys themselves, they would have to maintain them themselves, they'd have to buy all these services, build them, structure them, then they would degrade eventually, and they'd have to repurchase them.
Exactly.
And the new way of doing things is you have larger companies, say an Amazon or a Google, who provide these toys, take care of the toys, so they take care of the IT services, they offer them to companies, and instead of buying them themselves, the companies hire them.
Exactly.
And use them to their benefit.
Yeah, very well summarized.
It sounds really cool.
It is cool. It is cool. It democratizes latest technologies for everyone to use, right? You can use this as a one-man show, starting up a company. You would be able to leverage services nowadays, paying just a few tens of dollars per month that companies would invest millions of dollars just maybe 10 years ago in developing for themselves.
It also sounds really complicated.
It is, I guess, you know, when you first are experiencing this, it is complicated. The complicated part also comes from the fact that you need to adjust a little bit how the company is working to be able to leverage all of these services efficiently. Once you understand that and you get the hang of it, I think it's easier than one might think.
How did you end up doing this job coming from Romania?
I decided to go into the IT field, and the first step for me was to go into an informatics high school. As a result of that, my parents were forced to some extent to buy me a PC. Couldn't afford a new one, so I had to build one by buying secondhand parts and put them together, which was a nice project. We successfully managed to do that. It was not as common back then as it is now, but the side effect of that was that it was breaking down all the time. Either hardware or software, there was always a problem with my computer that I needed to troubleshoot. I remember that sometimes it just stopped working. No matter what I tried to do, it didn't work unless I completely disassembled it and then put it back together, and then I got it to function. So I didn't know what the problem is, but that kind of fixed it. So I kept doing this again and again, and I got very familiar with the technology behind it, with how it works together, how it interconnects, and so on and so forth. And that landed me my first job when I moved to uni. I got a job as IT support. I, leveraged the skills that I acquired while tending to my own PC, and then I realized that servers and storage, these types of systems have a very similar architecture when you look inside the box. And then I went a little bit deeper on that, and that landed me my second job, which was a pre-sales consultant for a small system integrator, and I learned a lot. That second job for me was what catapulted me into this IT world. I was basically sizing up various infrastructure solutions for my customers, and it exposed me a lot to working with different IT vendors. It exposed me a lot to the IT world, so I started kind of having my connections there. And then after that, I started working with these big IT vendors like HP, IBM, EMC, and so on. And I had jobs with multiple of these companies. And then Amazon Web Services was created, and they started talking about this public cloud. And at some point in time, I got contacted, had an interview, loved the idea of taking my career in that direction. It seemed like a nice organic step, and I went for it. And I made this change about 9 years ago, and I'm still in this business.
What do you love about your job?
I love that I'm working with companies, large companies that are at the brink of what is possible to do with technology, and they're leveraging these technologies technologies to achieve great things, and I'm part of it, which is amazing.
What's the biggest challenge in your job?
The biggest challenge is trying to have the customer obsession that you need to have to be able to do this job properly. And you have to reconcile that with the demands that the company that you're working for has from you. Because, right, we're living in a very materialistic world. All of these companies, they want to make money. You need to make money for the company you're working with, and you also need to be providing value to your customers at the same time. It's a balancing act that one needs to take full control of and be aware of. That's not easy all the time.
What do you think is the biggest challenge the workforce in your industry faces today?
And Chat GPT, or Chat GPT-like products and services, if you will. I think I told you this once here. There's no compression algorithm for experience.
Turns out there is.
Turns out there is, man. Because, I've been working in this field for 18 years. And when somebody asks me a question, customer asks me a question, I have all of that experience that is helping me formulate an answer. And I tried to take some of the answers and some of the questions that my customers ask me and some of the answers that I give to my customers. And I tried asking ChatGPT about the same thing. The answers that it gave were very good. It mimics experience, and you can use it as somebody who does not have experience to be able to mimic experience. I think it's only a matter of time before, answering technical questions, how you would troubleshoot something, how you'd be able to achieve that, what is the best recipe for success with regards to this. You wouldn't need to rely on people's experience anymore with regards to this. You would be able to rely on some sort of system that has access to multiple success stories and then see what these companies have done and then, summarize an answer for you. And I think that's beautiful, right? First of all, it's a very beautiful service to have and to take advantage of. But at the same time, it's pretty scary, right? Because where does it stop? Where can you still add value as an individual contributor? And I think that my job particularly still has a lot of areas in which I can add value. There's a lot of human interaction happening, but I think it's just a matter of time before technology evolves in this direction also.
So you don't see your job as immediately under threat by AI?
No, I think there's quite some time between this and that happening, but I do see a lot of jobs that will be affected very, very soon, if not immediately.
What part of your job costs you the most energy?
I work with multiple multinational companies. Whenever you do that, you have a lot of people that you have to sync with. When you have a lot of solutions that you're covering, you have specialized people dealing with each of these solutions. What happens is that you need to align as a team. You need to understand what everybody's doing. You need to kind of have a common way forward. That takes a lot of time and energy. And whenever you have multiple people, you usually get that odd person that maybe doesn't want to take responsibility, is a little bit, tricky to get to do what they're supposed to be doing. You're as strong as your weakest link.
What does your business or industry get right?
Technology trends. I think that's the case also because these companies are kind of trendsetters. So that's something that they definitely get right.
What work or job would you do if money weren't a question?
I would very likely go more towards nature. I was saying at the beginning, I'm still fascinated by the interconnectivity between the microscopic world, like the bacteria, the fungi, and the plants and animals. We're discovering more and more interconnectivity between these realms, and I find it fascinating that you can't really do one without the other. There's this beautiful balance in nature that I would like to explore further. I do my best to do that in my free time.
What is your life advice for the next generation?
If you would work on something that is applicable, no matter what you want to do, right? No matter what your path in life is going to be, that's discipline. If you can get that going for you, you would be successful in every realm. Think about what you want to do. And once you know what you want to do, you also know what you have to do in order to get there. And just be relentless with regards to doing what you know needs to be done. Not what you feel like doing, not what other people would like you to do, not what you would please other people by doing, but doing what you have to do to get where you want to go. And if you get that right, there's no stopping you, right? The sky's the limit.